Well, the beginning of the summer was loaded with Final Fantasy news. The past month has been pretty dry, with both Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy XVI being fairly quiet. People are hungry for the next update, but it looks as though they won't have to wait long. Square Enix has confirmed their TGS roster, and you're gonna want to hit that subscribe button for all the Tokyo Game Show coverage to come. Square Enix has officially announced their schedule for Tokyo Game Show, as well as which games will be featured on the list. Most notably are Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis and Crisis Core Reunion. It's entirely possible that we could finally be getting release dates for these titles at the Tokyo Game Show, with Ever Crisis likely receiving a firm date for its beta. Now you might be wondering, what about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy XVI, the two games that most of you want to see above all? Well, they're not on the list actually, but hey, don't freak out just yet. It's very typical for major games like this to actually not be on the list. This is because it's supposed to be a surprise when they do appear. Square Enix's show is scheduled to take place on Friday the 16th, and it's going to be around 2 hours long. It means that there is a ton of room for surprises, and these surprises likely mean both things like Final Fantasy XVI, as well as a ton of brand new game announcements. It's also worth noting that Yoshi P has said the next trailer for FF16 has been slated for the fall, and Tokyo Game Show is the first major show leading into the fall season. Yoshi P has also stated that he wants this next trailer to focus on the story and world of Final Fantasy XVI. My personal hope is that we'll get a little bit more backstory on Clive. Thus far, we really don't know much about Clive as a person. We know that his main motivation seems to be revenge, and that the game will depict the story of his life across 3 different time periods: his teens, his 20s, and his 30s. If the next trailer is gonna focus on the story, I want them to focus on Clive. Tell me more about why he's fighting. That being said, when I recently polled my community on what they want to see for the next Final Fantasy XVI trailer, the clear winner here was world exploration. People want to see Clive moving around Valistia. This is also personally my top pick for what I want to see most out of the next trailer. Now, what are the chances that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth shows up? Probably not quite as likely as Final Fantasy XVI. FF16 is a game that's coming quite a bit sooner, and we still don't really know much about it at all. FF7R already has a ton of hype behind it just being Final Fantasy VII. It really doesn't need to elaborate that much. However, Final Fantasy XVI is a brand new property, one that in true Final Fantasy fashion is quite different from everything that's come before it, save maybe Final Fantasy XIV, and people have a lot of questions regarding it. Because of that, I think that Square really needs to focus on marketing the game and showing off all of its strong points, introducing people to the world, story, party members, combat, and really selling Final Fantasy fans on these different aspects of it. So I think the next update for Rebirth will be a little further out, and the next major bit of Final Fantasy news will probably focus on 16. There's also another game that we've gotten a bit of an update for, Lost Soul Aside. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've been highly anticipating this game. If you couldn't tell just from looking at the game's protagonist, it was influenced by the early trailers for Final Fantasy Versus 13 and 15, with what also looks to be an incredible combat system. A game that started out being an indie game is now one that's received a ton of funding from Sony. The only problem is that this game has been in development for quite some time, and people are wondering, where is Lost Soul Aside? The developers have had this to say about the game's next major appearance. Quote, "We will not appear at the China Joy event this year. We know people have mitigated feelings toward the game's development speed, but things are proceeding smoothly. But there is a big chance that you hear from us before 2022 ends." So it seems that we won't have to wait too much longer before we get some kind of update on this game. I just hope that whatever update that we get next on this game has a firm release date that isn't going to be budging. And now we have a word from a special guest.
Greetings, weeaboos of the internet. I am the Night Sky King. Think of me like the Night Sky Prince, but with the voice of an actual man. Good old Princey Poo here loves Final Fantasy XIV, but as someone with a backbone, I've always preferred FF11. I am here today to invite you to your ascension on my channel, Night Sky King. My fellow kings, there is no pretty girl in the outro today. Click the video to the left of me or the link in the description below, and finally enjoy some real gaming content, and I will see you all in the next spiritual encounter.